Hey there riders, Kris here from mcnews.com.au. I'm here at the Australian R18 Roctane launch. As you can see here, wicked cruiser from BMW, and it's a little bit of a different one. It's got the different wheel setup, different headlight and dash setup. There's a couple of things that really make this stand out, and of course, if you're into cruisers, this is one to check out. So let's have a talk about the details of the R18 Roctane.
The Roctane marks the fifth installment in BMW's R18 range of cruisers and stands out for the 21-inch front and 18-inch rear wheel combo, all new rider stance, and of course the styling with headlight integrated dash and awesome blacked out chrome. This was my first time riding an R18, so I don't have much in the way of comparison to the other variants, but the bike certainly impressed. First up, the overall, spending a day doing a loop of the putty of around 300 kilometers on the Roctane was great fun, ticking the vast majority of boxes when it comes to having an enjoyable ride, made even better by being part of a big group of similarly mounted riders. While the Roctane does offer panniers, this is arguably the least highway style of the options, but handles sweeping bends alongside some slightly tighter stuff with ease and aplomb, and would no doubt gobble up the highway miles with the simple addition of a screen. The big strengths to me would fall into the build quality and design or style, the latter being a bit of a subjective topic of course, great handling, especially for being a big cruiser, a very refined power plant with modern electronic system, and good brake setup. The weaknesses by contrast fall into being perhaps a bit too refined in the engine department, as well as lacking a more audible and aggressive exhaust or intake note to bring out a bit more character. So typically BMW with everything done exceedingly well, but perhaps a little too well when it comes to that engine. Let's start with the build and finish quality. The Roctane is a big and undeniably heavy bike, but the attention to detail is staggering with clean lines, minimal wiring visible, and a sturdiness that suggests this is a bike built to last. BMW apparently opted to avoid too much integration of parts, which would have brought weight down, instead focusing on a modifier-friendly platform. We also see a generous electronics package, and while the analog speedo does run a digital readout for limited information, there's ride modes, traction control, cruise control and ABS with reverse, hill start assist, TPMS, adaptive headlight, anti-theft and heated grips, all an optional extra, but fitted to our test bikes. There's a low fuel light too, but no always visible gauge. There's no doubt the R18 Roctane is a big bike too, weighing 374 kilos fully fueled with a relatively low 720mm seat height, somewhat offset by the sheer width of the bike, with floorboards running behind and slightly under the massive heads of that enormous boxer twin. That offers a natural sitting position with a bit more reach up to the taller bars, a natural foot position, and good wind protection for your lower legs at least, as well as a sculpted and comfortable seat, although for my size 11 feet, the rear brake and forward shifter controls were hard to access. At 180cm and a 32-inch inseam, that was a relatively natural sitting position, especially once I got used to using the heel shifter, and I had no issues between my shins and the heads as far as clearance. Torque from the 1802cc engine comes on smooth with broad drive, although there's some vibes through the bars that are quite noticeable, somewhere that feels around the mid-range. You can rev through that and the engine smoothens out again from a bar vibe perspective, and you can push that quite far. I think I saw 100 kilometers per hour in third or maybe fourth, but the engine character is a bit more restrained overall. Roll mode offers a more casual ride mode, with rock sharpening things up a bit, although the generous torque starting so low and being available everywhere lacks the aggressiveness of the V-twins with a more similar torque output that I've tested at least, like the FXDR. Obviously it'll be a personal preference whether you'd rather the more rowdy traditional cruiser power plant or BMW's more refined option. The exhaust note is also very quiet except for the startup roar, with this R18 begging for more exhaust note. Despite the weight, the Roctane is an easy handler both around town and particularly once you reach the open road and are moving at speed, with a smooth and planted ride from the beefy fork setup while the monoshock handles that rear. I did get a little chatter up the front from some really bad undulations, but overall that suspension setup was well above expectations. Handling is a particular standout here for a cruiser, with an easygoing character no doubt helped by the narrow rear wheel, with little if any function traded off for the form of the Roctane. It's no modern electronic suspension setup, but was capable of offering a comfortable ride for the vast majority of the putty loop, and at no time did I feel like I was really having to muscle the bike around or be overly mindful of my cornering lines. Ground clearance also seemed a strength, although if you push the pace into the corners a bit more, you will find the limits there with a more measured approach to the winning proposition. With so much bike and rider to pull up, the three 300mm disc brakes with 4-pot calipers, 2 at the front and 1 at the rear, had their work cut out for them, and there was good stopping power there to shed speed, although that's in the context of a 450 kilo bike and rider weight combo, so we're not talking about S1000RR style brakes. Having trouble getting my toe onto that rear brake no doubt didn't help though, as I had to really squeeze it in there, and it was at times hard to tell if I was using it effectively as a result. And at the end of the day, there's just a lot of momentum there with such a big bike, and you really can't escape that. Opening the bike up a bit, the claimed top speed does indeed seem quite possible, however acceleration feels a little on the flat side if I'm honest, with the most obvious factor being the wind force pushing back against you rather than an enormous punch of torque. I just put that down to the fairly flat torque curve however. Overall, the R18 Roctane is a good thing, which certainly goes its own way, offering a very BMW take on the cruiser segment rather than trying to create a carbon copy of someone else's offering. It looks the business, has some good go and great handling and suspension, while pricing looks pretty competitive, even going for the decked out version we tested, which lands for about 33k here in Australia.
So don't forget to check out the full R18 Roctane written review at mcnews.com.au, and of course hit subscribe. Let us know your thoughts on this particular bike down below in the comments, and as always, stay safe out there.